Us to order? I think. Good, thank you. I'm glad it didn't record that.
Got it. Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, so now this new script here. In accordance with the library's policy T regarding all virtual public meetings, the Fairfax County Public Library Board of Trustees may hold up to two all virtual non-consecutive meetings per year. This meeting complies with policy T. And the policy says things like we can't have them in a row and so forth and so on. We have to all be able to hear each other. Presumably we can because we sang, so I don't have to check that out. So we are now in session. The first item on the agenda is a public comment. I'll read the usual script. The library board wishes to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on library-related issues. It is our policy to hear a maximum of 10 speakers at each regularly scheduled board meeting. Speakers are limited to one public comment during a 6-month period. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes for their comments. A 30-second warning will be given before each speaker's time is up, and the speaker will be expected to end promptly when time is called. Speakers are requested to pre-register with the library director. However, if there are available public comment slots open at the time of the board meeting, the remaining slots may be filled by individuals registering at the meeting. Board members will listen but not question or respond to speakers. Tonight, there are no registered speakers. If anyone does wish to speak at a future meeting, please call the director's assistant at 703-324-8324. Okay. We all got a copy of the minutes. Are there any corrections on those minutes? No? If not, I will declare them approved as submitted. Minutes are done. We're moving right along. Okay, my chair's report tonight. I don't have to say happy birthday because I already did. Happy birthday. But we have some retirees I like to read for the record. There were one retiree from October, Amy Weatherby, retired in October 2023 as a library aide at the Reston Regional Library after more than 30 years of dedicated service. She started at the old Carter Glass branch, where her mother had also worked, then went to Herndon branch before coming to Reston in 1991. She was a steady, reliable presence throughout all the changes that have come over the years. She enjoys crafts programs and even co-hosted programs with friends on staff before retirement. So that's all give a hand. Yeah. I'm going to ask where the Carter Glass branch was. I don't know. That's new to me. That must have been a very long time ago.
It was in
Anybody
the
know?
old Reston Town Plaza,
Oh, so it's now what? It's now the Reston branch.
or it's on Lake Ann where the Reston Historical Society is. I forget what
Oh.
that's called.
That's
Oh,
when
okay.
FCPL used to have the minis, when we had
Oh,
like
yeah.
big libraries like
Yeah,
Reston
yeah.
Regional, but we also had little tiny ones that were in
Yeah.
shopping centers and
Yeah, we had one in near our Safeway after they burned down Burke Center. Okay, so there were 3 retirees for in November. I'm sorry. Alia Parvez retired from FCPL on November 2nd as a youth services librarian at the Tysons Pimment Regional Library. Alia Parvez worked in several branches of FCPL, including Oakton and Reston, before spending her last years at Tysons. She enjoyed library work and the environment so much that she got her MLS while working at FCPL. She plans to spend her retirement traveling the world and spending more time with her grandchildren. Great. I hope that the foundation scholarship helped her get that MLS, unless they didn't exist back then. Bonnie Smith also retired from FCPL. She did on November 17th as a library aide at the Pohick Regional Library. And she worked for the library for 27 years. She was very dedicated to the clientele at Pohick and was a shining star on how to interact with customers, explaining policies and procedures, or how to print a receipt at the checkout workstations. Bonnie was often called upon to help train incoming staff with media, mending materials, and collection management removal. Bonnie had a way of getting the customer what they wanted in an upbeat and positive manner. So congratulations to Bonnie. She's retired. And finally, Maria Saina Hunan retired from FCPL on November 21st as a library aide at the Pohick Regional Library. Zaina was another shining star with 22 years of experience, almost all of it at Pohick and Richard Byrd. Zaina was often called upon to help train incoming staff with media and reporting. She was very generous with her time and would offer to help out at the branches with staffing shortages. When interacting with the public, she was always gracious and kind. So congratulations to her and to all of them. Very good. And I presume we'll have something on Andrew next time. Okay. No?
I mean, yes, of course, but I'm hoping to delay the inevitable by saying, no, of course not. He
No,
can't
of course,
retire.
not. Okay. Because I was asked today at my library, because he stood in for the Book Center branch for a while. And he was very helpful, very nice guy, and we get along with Pohick well. And everybody said, well, are you going to announce Andrew tonight? I said, no, because he's retiring tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Chair's report other than that is that we do have a consideration item tonight. We'll talk about that when we get there. We have several committee reports, and Jessica has something that she'll interject at one of those committee reports. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Let's see, is Sujatha here? I don't see her.
Not yet.
No.
She's not, I think
No,
she's
not yet.
Okay. Do you want to step in and give outreach, or you want me to hold off, Jessica?
I can if you'd like. I've got the PowerPoint prepared.
Go ahead. Let's do
Yep.
that.
Okay, so give me just a moment, everyone, while I bring up PowerPoint.
Hello, Liz, by the way. I saw you come in.
Okay, can everyone see the screen with the PowerPoint on there? Okay, so I am gonna pretend to be Sujatha for a little bit, and when she hops on, she's welcome to jump in at her convenience and leisure. And we're going to be talking a little bit about one of the items that came up in the last outreach committee meeting, which was a request for additional information of staff. But before I get there, I'll give a little background. So we'll start off with the outreach committee met at the end of November. And part of their goal, in addition to the annual kind of quarterly review of their talking points for the winter session, which are in your packet for your review, was to talk about the request that got punted back to their committee about community engagement. You may recall that at your October and maybe also November board meetings, there was some light discussion around if there was interest in doing some type of community engagement. And the three options that were presented were kind of a very low impact, just general surveys and information boards and lobbies asking for like post-it feedback, kind of a midpoint listening sessions with staff and trustees, and then maybe a full-blown survey, since the last community engagement survey this board held was in 2015 and in 2016. The committee had a really engaged conversation, and a number of folks who were there are here today and can speak to it further. But really where it ended was a request of staff to look further into utilizing current data to see what we could make as a best case to support both the efforts of FAN and Outreach Committee in making kind of lateral community engagement advocacy opportunities, as well as talking points for you all as you engage with elected officials. And specifically, the area that we landed on was around the collection. So for fiscal year 24, Fran and the FAN committee had great success in utilizing staff developed data around the ebook collection, both general wait times, which can be a little long, and those really extraordinary wait times for items that are just super popular.
May I interrupt for 1 second, Jessica?
Yeah, of course.
Sujatha is here.
Oh, hi.
I just want to let her, I say, hi, Sujatha. We're in the outreach report now. Jessica's giving this PowerPoint. Is that okay? Do you need to step in, or
Oh,
that's it?
I don't.
Go.
And if when we get to discussion, if there's anything that I remember, I will pop in then.
Okay.
I'm
go for
sorry.
it.
I'm very sorry for being late. I
No,
apologize.
that's fine. Go ahead, Jessica.
Hi, Sujatha. Okay. So in fiscal year 24, the focus was around ebook data and about the level of wait times versus kind of the quantity of items we had. This year, the outreach committee started talking, kind of narrowed the focus in around the physical collection, in particular, the age of the physical collection, and then in an even tinier slot, the nonfiction collection, which for Suzanne and Fran, who are prior FCPL staff, they know that that is an area that we try and weed as much as possible to ensure that we have accurate, timely information, but if you don't have materials to backfill it with, that can be really hard to stay up to date with. So staff were asked to come back with some more precise data. The data that we had previously was at a little bit of a higher level and had been pulled maybe a year or two ago. So what we found, and when I say we, I really mean Diane Cohen and Dustin Boer in our technical operations division, who did an amazing job of pulling this all together and making it very readable and easy to kind of figure out. So thank you to them. What they found is that across our collection, we have about 600,000, 575,000 nonfiction items. That is children's, teens, adults, all of those different areas. And they looked at a number of different factors. They looked at how many items we had in the collection for different kind of Dewey Decimal numbers, how old those items were, the general age that we would look at weeding out materials. So for example, we would anticipate that medical items would probably only be in the collection for 5, 6, 7 years because those become out of date fairly quickly. But something like philosophy would probably be able to withstand the test of time a little bit longer, maybe 20 years, because that is not something that has a more regular update pattern. We follow a standard library crew weeding method. This is pretty industry standard. And so they tracked those against the different areas. Once they had those figures, they were able to look and see how many items in these individual collection areas fell within our standard weeding parameter guidelines. Were they still realistically aged to be in the collection? Or should we really probably have pulled them a while ago, but we just don't have money to buy new stuff to backfill them? And then even further in, they tried to figure out how much it would cost if we actually wanted to replace all those items. Apologies, the next slide has some pretty tight sizing, but I wanted to jam it all in there, and you know, you can make the font larger in the version you get. So across the board, and this is for children's, teen, and adult nonfiction, the average age of our nonfiction items is about 10 years. It's actually like 9.4, but 10 seemed like a nice round number. About 40% of those items, or 235,000 of them, are older than they should be. They very likely should have been weeded and removed from our collection. That is not to say that we have materials in our collection that we know are inaccurate. We are always going to pull and weed items that have inaccurate information, that are no longer viable, that have been things that really need to be removed. But if it's not going to, if it's not like a medical textbook where we know the information has become out of date and could be harmful for someone, we may not remove it as quickly because we don't have items to backfill it. TechOps provided 2 sets of figures. The first was if we had a boon from the sky fall in our laps, someone gifted us with just a giant check of money, and we could back up all of those things. We could remove everything that shouldn't be there and replace it with new current materials. That would cost us about $750,000 right now. It is not on the slide. Again, the font is a little small, but please remember that our total starting collection budget in any given year is usually about $3 million. So this is about a quarter of our collection budget in any given year at the start of the year. Once we actually got to a place where everything is appropriate and timely, we still have to do updates every year because more things become out of compliance with weeding standards. That would cost us about $635,000 annually as an increase to our baseline collection budget. And those 2 numbers right there are not to get to 100% compliance. This is not everything falls within crew standards now. This is just trying to move the needle a little bit, usually to about a 75% mark, which is, that's a C, which is better than we're getting in some areas, but is not as good as we should probably be doing. I included some examples in here about areas where we are more than 60% out of compliance. That means 40% or less of our materials are within the weeding parameters of how long we should keep an item. Those include collections that are focused on economics, military science, astronomy, animal husbandry, agriculture and pets, home management, specifically child rearing and child raising, photography, computer art, computer science, and my favorite, which I am ashamed to admit, but I had to go and look up, numismatics, or the art of coin and money collection, which has only 13% of the items in there are within the scope of our weeding parameters. So, some money is old, might be okay, but not all of it. The committee in specific talked about the medical collection as an area that may be of interest for the board to to use as a really good example, because if you are an FCPL cardholder and library user and you rely on the library for realistic, timely, factual information, and maybe you do not have the resources to purchase these items on your own, or you do not have the information skills to hunt down accurate information on your own, which in the medical world can be very hard to do. There's a lot of conflicting information out there. This is one that might be a good example. This is the 610s in the Dewey Decimal System, and the average recommended age for materials is within 5 years. We own about 32,000 items, and about 60% of those fall outside of the weeding parameters. So they are older than 5 years old, about 19,000 items. If we wanted to reach just that target of 75% of the collection being within the time frame that we should have them, we would need to replace 11,000 items at a cost of about $90,000. And then annually, we would need another 60 just to keep up with that one very small segment of the nonfiction collection. So I will end there, and I will stop sharing my screen. And I will turn it over to Sujatha, because really this was just a follow-up on the data collection that was requested by the committee. So I will pass it your way.
For that. I really appreciate
Okay.
it. I want to just say one thing that I think was sort of a central theme that we were discussing, and I think it's important for us to frame it with this in mind. I appreciated, Phil said, he said to us in our last meeting in person, and he reminded us in the outreach meeting that, surveys, people have survey fatigue. So, we may not even get the kind of information we want, which led us into a discussion about what kind of information might we be able to get in which kind of ways. And really, in the end, we came up with this sort of, the seminal purpose here is that we are trying to glean from our community information that would help us to frame an argument with our Board of Supervisors to increase our funding, because you just saw the rationale that Jessica just gave us for the need for us to keep our, really our book budget. We need to be improving the quality and the timeliness, et cetera, of our collection. We can't do that right now. So what are the things that would allow us to make that argument that's backed with something to be convincing to the Board of Supervisors? That's really what we're trying to make. What is that argument? So that coming from the community, in addition to FAN doing the same thing, but as we had said before, sort of like with a branched out tree system versus like sort of covering the ground. How do we make an argument? How do we collect the information? What might be the information that is the most convincing to take to our Board of Supervisors to make an argument on behalf of the people that we represent to increase the funding for our county? And one of the things that like when we were discussing and brainstorming, our Board of Supervisors takes great pride in the argument that we are like a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge community. And are we a state-of-the-art, cutting-edge community if we have medical texts that are decades out of date, perhaps, or we don't have a collection regarding money and economics or coinage or whatever that really does a full treatment of, say, Bitcoin or whatever. Maybe having paper books regarding Bitcoin is sort of weird, but you know what I'm saying. So like stuff that is like the most cutting edge stuff for a cutting edge community like ours, that's a good argument, right? So what are the ways that we could, of course, you don't want to lead with you can't be driving your data, your research by what the answer is. So that's not good process either. So we can make some assumptions, some sort of hypotheses regarding what might be the truth in our community, but how do we gather this information? How often does a person need current information that they're not able to get? How often do you go to the library looking for something you can't find as you go buy it yourself for people who have that money? And then can we extrapolate out from that for people who have the money to go elsewhere? What do people do who don't have the money to go and really do need their library to have have the state-of-the-art, cutting edge like we claim to be in Fairfax County, with our schools, with our libraries, with our parks, with everything? How do we do that? So that was sort of, I wanted to make sure that I communicated that to you guys, because that's really at the end, what we're trying to do is make sure that our Board of Supervisors can support the library in a way that would make us the kind of library that Fairfax, if we are what we purport to be, would have. I think that sort of
Mhm.
says what I wanted to make sure I said.
Yeah.
Is
I
he
appreciate
argument
it. I
recorded?
appreciate that. I'm sorry, Gary?
Gary had his hand up.
Sorry, Gary.
Gary,
I
Gary.
I just had one suggestion, that in addition to this comprehensive presentation that you're talking about, which is essential, that we also pick just one data point and beat it to death.
I do
Okay.
not have a
So-
beef with that, Gary. I agree with you. I think I think that this is a very compelling, what Jessica just said. And, Diane Cohn gave this presentation to us about the collection, 2 years ago or something? I feel like it was like one of the first things I saw. Maybe I wasn't even a trustee then. I don't remember. She gave a great presentation about the collection. That was a couple of years ago. And, I know that we have an amazing staff that is always cobbling things together and figuring things out, moving, robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, just doing what they need to do in order to keep our library system as robust as it is. But, we could really use some funding. And you're right. This is a really good argument, Gary. I mean, I think when I see that, and it doesn't really jive with being a cutting edge community at the cutting edge of everything, and really right next to the nation's capital, and
True. Any other questions or comments from anyone? No? I appreciate you looking into this and the outreach committee and Jessica and the staff too. I'd like to know how we compare with equivalent library systems. I always tout us as being one of the biggest and best in the country, and that's great. But if it comes to people trying to do research with nonfiction books, whether they be public school people or college people, I mean, we have colleges and all, we're not helping them a whole lot by having a lot of old books. And so I'd also like to know what kind of complaints we've had, if any, like Sujatha said, if people have said, hey, I can't get what I need. Does that happen frequently?
Sure. I'd be happy to respond to that. I see that Liz has her hand up as well. I wasn't sure if that was a follow-up from either what Gary or Sujatha said.
I was just going, Brian asked for any comments, and
Yeah.
I was a little bit slow. I hope you guys can hear me. I have a new computer set up. So it's like, it's not working well for me right now. I even had to load up Zoom to get to the meeting, but that's how new my computer is. I was alarmed at the information that Jessica presented. I haven't focused when we think about the library resources on the nonfiction part, and I just think of all these wonderful volumes of fiction. And although we do have the internet, so when I was hearing things, I was like, oh, this is very depressing. But then I thought, oh well, we have the internet. A lot of people would access the internet, but not everybody does have the internet, and they do need hard copy resources. And it just was really troubling. And it just, when we talk about budget cutbacks and we have this need and that need, and it's just like, sometimes it's almost overwhelming just to stay current with the needs of our community. So I was very impressed that the outreach group asked for the data, and very alarmed that our nonfiction resources in our libraries are really out of date as much as they are. That was just, again, anything that we can do to improve that condition, I think would be very worthwhile for us. And I think if we are going forward with our fan group and talking to our supervisors, the more succinct we can get the problem, the better off we are for them to hear the real message. And I love the medical example that was used, Jessica, because that could really be problematic if they're using this as information that will impact their somebody's research or their papers, et cetera, et cetera. in terms of the accuracy of the information. And we all know there's a lot of churn in the nonfiction world in terms of new information coming out. So
Well, I
just
think that
alarmed.
thanks go to actually to Kripa for really pushing to make sure that we followed up, and for kind of honing on that medical piece. And you know, I think I would be disingenuous if I didn't say that many people can have access to great resources online. Both the library and FCPS have great databases that are hopefully full of good, timely resources. But if I use the medical example as kind of a launching point, there is a ton of medical misinformation online. And if you are already scared or perplexed or nervous about something in your life, and you maybe heard 2 or 3 words out of a dozen that your doctor said to you, you may not be in a space where you are searching for accurate information online, and you may find that you go down maybe a rabbit hole that is not full of viable, accurate, timely, reliable information. So even though the majority of folks within our community are digitally literate, do have accessibility, we try and make sure that we're there as a safety net, that we have those great resources for both research and personal use, and that we know that they are going to be full of good information still.
Inaccurate, right?
Good, thank you.
Sujata
Anything
has her
else?
hand up.
I just want to ask this one question about,
Yeah.
we used to have our meetings. It's not happened since I've been on the board, but that we would have the meetings with the Board of Supervisors. And I think they were canceled a couple of times or something. I don't know whether that's happening again with these new ones. I know we can have meetings with our own supervisors, and I will definitely be doing that, and any others as well. But I'm wondering if, as a group, we had that scheduled in the past. I know that was something.
Yeah.
And
So the last one was when an update was provided to the Board of Supervisors about the library board's initiative to go fine free. So that would have been at least 1.5 years ago now. There were some technical challenges with that, so it maybe wasn't as face-to-face, even though it was virtually face-to-face as was hoped for. I have reached out about scheduling another one. They like to have specific agenda items queued up, but I would be happy to reach back out again.
I just think that, like you said, pick one thing, beat it, just beat it to death. But I've always thought, from the first time I saw this presentation that Diane made a couple years back, extremely, extremely compelling regarding funding our libraries. So it might be a good idea to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Phil?
Jessica, is there any way, like we keep talking about the Board of Supervisors, but what if we tried to get an appointment with the county executive, a personal meeting where we all come in and we have a game plan? I mean, he's the guy that, puts the numbers on a piece of paper, he'll staff, and then the supervisors work with that. But could we try that?
You could certainly try, but I think that the relationships that you all have built with your elected officials may be the easier entry point on this. Our county executive is trying to balance a million different needs. And while he is always responsive and respectful of individual constituent groups and boards, authorities, and commissions, he has 95 of them. And he's trying to present a balanced budget, which is required by state law, to our elected officials for them to have those policy decisions around. So I can try if you'd like. I think reaching out to your individual elected officials is probably an easier pathway, but you can try both.
But, my point, I'm not saying we do one, not the other. I mean, if somewhere we could get his ear, if somewhere he saw this data that you just presented, I think we could make a compelling case, whatever the number is, you say, I think our budget's 350,000 or something like that. Maybe we get it up to 500,000, once he would see it, he doesn't know this information. Okay. And again, like you say, he's the one that's balancing this thing. So as one member, I would think I would like us to ask for that. And then, we could go as a group and maybe have 2 or 3 of us speak to him, because he wouldn't give us that much time. At the same time, we meet with our Board of Supervisor member with our game plan.
I will see what I can do.
It's good thought.
And I don't know, Brian, if you saw Fran's had her hand up.
I did see Fran's hand up earlier, but did you have something, Fran?
Yeah, I wanted to say how I feel like this data supports and blends right in with what the FAN committee has been looking at. Last year, our ask was for a specific amount of money for a specific area of the collection. When I looked at the data and the amounts that were in there for updating and for maintenance, it would seem that we could pick one of those amounts. And the first step of, before, doing maintenance and or updating, and then, and make a specific ask for that in our request as we continue to ask for money for the, for the collection, and sort of maybe change our focus a little bit to this. But the other thing that occurred to me is, what is the language to communicate to, say, library users or non-library users about the updated collections? Because if we say X% of our collection is out of date, or not even out of date, but just slightly old, what would that mean to someone? Like, you have really old books, what are you doing? And the nuance of the weeding, like the nuance of the different ages of collections and what that means to their relevance, would be something that I think we would want to work out the language that if we decide to do this, and to communicate to the advocates of when we say we have out of date books. Like, the image that pops into my mind is actually, it is our library shelves, because when you walk down them, sometimes they just look old and tired. It doesn't look like a bookstore. It's not going to, because we have a lot of people using the book, bringing it back, bring it back, if you see what I mean. I don't want to keep beating that dead horse, but I think working on the language for that would be, important. And I think there are trustees on the board who are not former librarians or library staff. And so your input is really going to be important in that,
Yeah.
your reaction and what that means and what that conjures up, and what's the best way to communicate that need.
Thank you. Gary?
The last time we had a meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and the last formal direction they gave us was to increase hours. I assume that is no longer our priority.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go.
so while that is still one of several priorities that you all have had and that they are interested in engaging around, staff have come back at least the last budget cycle and said, we can't even fill all of our current vacancies for the hours of operations we have now. So we have tried to kind of tilt the conversation a little bit more to an easier to fill objective, which would be the collection budget.
And I'm assuming that the board understands that.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
don't need to take away one priority and replace it with another. It's
No.
just understood that that's not feasible, and we can concentrate on collection.
Mhm.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, I think so. Any other questions or comments on this outreach?
You
Oh,
have hands
Brian,
up
I
from
do.
Liz and Fran.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, who was that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take my hand down. I'm okay.
Oh,
I
Sorry.
put my hand back up.
oh, Liz, I'm sorry. Liz, go ahead.
I sort of was, I thought Fran was gonna go there when she sort of did, but I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly. When we asked for the $300,000 last time, that was for an expansion of our collection, not necessarily refreshment and of the older books. Is that correct?
It was for ebooks.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
you're right.
The
Uh,
300,000 was mostly to buy down the hold lists.
Yeah,
on
and so I was
popular
thinking like, what is the next steps in terms, is it the fan group that is gonna come and formulate and ask? Or is that the outreach group that's gonna be formulating the ask, since we're looking at asking, the ask is of the supervisors rather than advocates? Not quite sure, but maybe as a part of that is a strategy, those were some big numbers that were on there, like 750,000 or 650,000, which really is not a complete picture. And maybe a strategy is that over the next 3 to 5 years, we ask incrementally on a regular basis for a certain amount of money, and always plugging away that about the need for increasing the hours in the community libraries as a long-term, again, as a long-term need, based on you know, the reality of the labor market or something like that. But so I'm not sure where we go with this wonderful
Yeah.
data in terms of the next steps.
So I think there are two pieces to that, and I'll defer to Fran or Sujatha if they'd like to jump in as well about the first part. But it sounded like the outreach committee and the fan committee are going to be collaborating around this. That now that we have maybe some data and direction, both fan and outreach are planning for forthcoming meetings in January. Fan is meeting on January 19th, and outreach is TBD, but probably the latter part of the month. And where fan's goal has I say traditionally in the last year and a half that you've done this, Fran, but traditionally has been around reaching out to community members. So it is that broad reach to people using common language and getting common goals up to the ears of elected officials. What outreach may be choosing to focus on is taking that same goal and crafting materials in support of communications to our elected officials. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin. I don't know, Fran and Sujatha, if that's where you also saw this going, but that's the piece I have taken out of it so far.
Well,
I
as-
guess
think
what,
sort of
Go ahead.
reversed maybe
Uh,
on some level, like I'm sorry, Fran, talking over you. Go ahead, you were saying.
well, I was gonna say is, I think the genesis of this is that the outreach committee was talking about how to find out from our customers what they want. And the idea of a survey, I don't want to say a bomb, but it didn't have a lot of life to it. And so then they transitioned to how can we find out from our own data what might be important to our customers. And that, if I'm correct, that's where that came from. So it's like they did the work for us of what should our ask be.
Well, I think that it's like
You
we
know,
we have the
Does
same.
that make sense to you?
I think that once we like sort of landed in outreach on the crux of it really is, it was Phil. He said, why don't we just meet with them and ask them for money? Why don't we do that? Because, you know, when you think about it, you're like, well, in the end, what we were trying to do is gather information from the community that would allow us to serve them better.
Mhm.
And we can serve them better when we're able to have up-to-date books, when we're able to, you know, meet their needs. And again, we can't anticipate what all their needs are without asking them. But one thing we do know for sure is that the community is better served with a robust collection that is up to date. That is what a library wants to have.
And
We can, you know, and that is also a very compelling argument to make to elected officials. So
Fundamentals.
I
Well,
mean,
and the important-
what I think is really interesting about it is like when it contrasts with like ebooks is a very sort of modern thing. And then we're sort of like going back to the basics of what is the library, and we're going to need to get language to make sure that you know, that fits with what we're talking about. But I think we can.
and I think also, Fran, we have to keep in mind, like we are always talking about our young community members and students using the library and who might have financial need and can't go and just buy the book. That's one thing for sure. But we also have a very aging community, and I mean a very aging community. And
Okay, that's enough.
Yeah. That's funny to think. Like when I was in the library, Herndon Fortnightly Library the other day, and at that hour, it was like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Really a tremendous number of older people were in the library, using the library late at night on the computers and everything. And you know, we have to consider that as well, that there are members of our community that is the way they get information and always have gotten information from books, from newspapers, and they're not comfortable with reading a newspaper wholly online, and they don't believe that they're getting the same news, and they really aren't. It's not the same. It's really not the same as when you're getting the full newspaper with all of the everything in it. And so, we have a whole community, a diverse community to support, and everyone is supported by a robust and up-to-date collection in a library.
And one thing I think it's important to remember too is like with with the third quarter review, $300,000, sort of earmarked for ebooks, but then that meant that there's other money available for updating the collection. So if we were to decide in our ask of like, well, I just picked out the numbers, like to upgrade our children's nonfiction would be $170,000. And then that would, if we got that, then that could be a goal that we did. And then, there'd be 170,000 that we could also use in another part of the collection, just as just sort of thinking through different strategies and what we
Absolutely, like that, like an itemized list is a great idea. Like how much would,
here's what it would,
how much would it, this is how much we need.
That's
and
what-
this is
yeah,
how
this
much
data
we
is great for that.
could pay for, and like and chip away at it. And so I think I prefer myself, I always prefer to put the full ask out there, so it's
Yeah.
always built. It spends time marinating in people's brains that the library, we can give them $100,000, but they want $700,000. You never forget they want $700,000.
Never forget.
Over and over, year after year. I think it's good for our elected officials to remember
agree.
that.
I agree.
Okay, well, I think that's a great discussion. I appreciate it, and I hope that Outreach and FAN do work together. I thought they would, and
Yeah.
just get the same
Pass our
message
hand up.
to the elected
Pete.
officials as well as to the
You have a
to
hand up
the
from Sue.
France. Who?
Sue.
Me. Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, I actually want to
They
know
keeps
regarding
popping to the upper left, and then I can't see it.
regarding the data, and some of the sections that you said were very out of date, like the coin collecting. Is there any way to see and correlate how out of date a collection is, correlated with the frequency of borrowing? So can we say that because the collection is so out of date, there are less and less people trying to check it out?
Maybe. We did not pull that data, although we do have some of that data. I'm not going to confirm how much we have. The only worry I would have about that correlation is I would hate to make the case inadvertently that people don't seem to care. They're just going to keep checking out old information because it's all that there is available. So we could do maybe a cursory review and then give you like a, yes, let's get some more data, or a maybe that won't help the case as much as we think it might. And I've been texting a little with Diane on the side, and she requested that I put out there as well, as you all are considering this at future Outreach and FAN committee meetings, that our collection budget, not touching the $300,000 one-time third quarter dollars, has been flat for over a decade. But when we say it's flat, we don't actually mean flat, because inflation. And so the purchasing power of the dollars that we have for that collection budget have steadily decreased over time. And at the outreach committee meeting, someone was talking, maybe it was me, about how important it is to have a COLA for the collection budget. That, we're not only talking about, developing our staff and our people, but the same amount of dollars does not go as far every year over year. So Brian, I am very sorry. I did not mean to suck up quite so much time with,
That's okay.
with
No,
that
this is good.
presentation.
That's good. I like that.
But anyone who's interested, come to
Yeah.
FAN on January 19th, come to Outreach on whatever date they select in
That's right.
later January. Fun discussions to be had.
That's right. And I did want to bring everybody's attention to the fact that Natalie Lorenzi is here. She has been officially nominated for the position that Priscilla had on our board, but she hasn't been approved due to the I don't know what the clerk of the board or something like that.
The calendar of timing for Board of
Calendar of
Supervisor
timing,
meetings
yeah.
to approve the nomination.
Yeah. So
January
at some
23rd.
point, at some point she will be approved and be here, but she's here listening and ready to work. So this will
Hi,
affect,
Natalie.
Thank you. It's good-
this will affect the school and the school children, I think, quite a bit.
Yes, for sure. I have a million thoughts in my head, so I'm here as a public
Good.
member today.
All right.
So looking
All
forward
right,
to
good.
joining you officially next month. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, not a problem. Okay, let's go to the fan committee then, please, Fran. Do you have something besides this?
Well, I wanted to unmute myself. Thank you. Yeah, the fan committee met on November 29th, and we reviewed the draft version of a new fan document about the county's budget preparation timeline to put into a flow chart with a visual representative of the steps. And Jessica was kind enough to get somebody with some really good skills with Word to put it together. I had done it with text boxes and arrows, and it wasn't bad, but so we've seen two versions, and I'm wondering, Jessica, well, I should go through and then you can answer next step on that. But we want it to be ready to send to the current advocates in 2024, in the new year, and to any new advocates we've signed up. We discussed the current and future budget atmosphere, and in light of the possible difficulties, it is more important than ever to have our advocates ready to support the need for funding the library. We'll be working on the advocate memo to have it ready for trustees by our February trustee meeting, because you all are the ones who will be sending it out to your advocates. We discussed the efforts to enlist friends groups in the advocacy efforts. We are recognizing the contribution that they already make is really important for a step in that process, and then meeting with representatives from each group and listening to their reactions to the advocacy effort and their ideas for how they would like to participate. And yesterday, then at the meeting, we talked about that I was scheduled to meet with the foundation, and I did that yesterday, and I passed around the clipboard, and almost all the foundation directors signed on to be an advocate, and I think it was the same number as were last year. I didn't have a list of last year's, but I think that's what it was. And then as far as the friends groups go, I know I'm scheduled for Kingstown, excuse me, later or early in the new year. It's funny to put those together. And then I am working on a schedule with the president of the Thomas Jefferson Friends as well. And that's pretty much my report. If anyone would like to add anything, especially Jessica, about the budget timeline document.
I am finding it right now to try and include in your chat, but I will send it around and it'll be part of the board minutes for everyone if you're interested. The budget timeline, Fran did a really nice job. We just zhuzhed it up a little bit, and I'll talk more about the budget when I get to my report as well.
Thank you. Any other comments on FAN? If not, let's have the foundation report, please. Liz, I understand they had a meeting.
All righty. Just wanted to acknowledge Fran's presentation. She did an excellent job. Fran, since the last year when we did the sign up for the fan group, I think there's been new members, and you might want to double check that you might have gotten a few more new names rather than just a repeat of the old names. Thank you for doing that, by the way. There are 2 new staff members in the foundation. Again, I'll probably mess up their names, but Karen Urcia, she's taken the finance lead, and Jennifer Johnson, who is really doing the role that Shelby used to have, more of an administrative role. She works with the committees, especially like the scholarship, and basically does a lot of variety in terms of administrative support. As of the meeting yesterday, the foundation meeting yesterday, they still had a 3rd opening, which was the development director. And I understand that they were hoping to fill that position really quickly. So I'm not sure if something has been announced, but nope, Jessica's saying nope, not yet. Okay. The summer reading festival, the 2 programs that they had, the one at Lorton and one at Chantilly, they believe that was very, very successful. They had 1,266 people as a door count for Lorton, which was 4 times their expectation. And the Chantilly Festival had 1,507. which is remarkable when you remember that they had a rain date, and this was the second date after they did all the advertising for the initial one. So that I was really impressed. I thought, oh, the numbers are really going to go down, but they didn't. They were hoping for 300. So there you go. For 2024, they do plan on having 2 festivals. This is again in support of the reading. Let me remind you what the festival, why they're doing that is to generate excitement about the library and summer reading drive programs, increase summer reading participation, and build up user base for the foundation. And in light of their trying to, again, disperse this program throughout the county, they are now going to hold the first one in 2024 at the Woodrow Wilson Library. And the second one will again be at Chantilly Library, since it's such a good facility for the program in terms of parking, etc. So the dates they're working with are June the 8th and 15th for Woodrow Wilson, and August the 17th and 18th for Chantilly. And when they lock it in, I'll let you guys know. And they're already working with the administrative library staff in terms of planning. So that's already underway. The Deck the Shelves, which was their program for the Tuesday Giving program, they brought in 196 books, which were identified by the libraries that would be nice to have extra copies. And again, they were very, very pleased at the 196 books. The foundation received a clean audit report, so they passed the audit and with no, I guess, problems. The 2023 appeals, which is their solicitation program through the mail, they got a reasonable return. I mean, actually the highest amount since they've been starting this. They do solicitations 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, and they gross $79,068, and by 319 people donating, and 32 of those were new donations, people who had not donated before. And the actual return from that 79,000 was $76,877 after expenses. And just to show you the growth that they've had with their appeals, back in 2020, they had 304 donations, totaling a gross of $44,684. So over the years, they've grown the appeals return, and they're feeling pretty good about that. And always, of course, they want to increase it. Their assets have grown by $500,000 since last year, so that's a plus. And their focus continues to be, as per normal, what a foundation is supposed to be doing is getting donations. And their real focus, in addition to just the normal one of donations, is they want to increase their connectivity to the donors and really establish stronger relationships to the people who are contributing to the foundation. So relationship building is very big. They had a training program last night that I was not able to attend because I had another meeting, but that was to train the foundation members on how to have one-on-one telephone conversations with donors, because they're going to all be doing outreach to some of the heavier donors initially, and then they'll want to expand it. So relationship building is critical this year. In addition to that, they announced that our library director, is going to be hosting an afternoon tea at her house, as Jessica said, probably dominated by Hannah. But all the foundation members are being asked to invite 5 to 10 community members to Jessica's tea, or the foundation's tea at Jessica's house. And yes, although not the hidden agenda, but the secondary agenda is always, adding to our people who donate, again, the critical one is when they were asking the members to think about people to invite, it's people who are supportive of the library, who are interested in the library, not necessarily whether they have money or not. So again, thank you, Jessica, for opening up your house. That's May the 4th of this year. They are recruiting new members. They're hoping to interview 8 people and get a good return out of that, because they would like to expand the total membership on the board, because there's a lot of need and there's a lot of demand, and we're Miriam Slolim, our former library chair, she's definitely instilling more of an energy into the group and accountability in terms of signing up for things. So they have a need for more candidates who will be chairs and vice chairs of the committees. So it'll be interesting. If you guys have anybody that you think would make a very good foundation person, you can give me that name and contact to me, and I will pass it on to the people who are the resource committee. I think that is basically, Brian, we had since I've been on the board, I don't believe we've had a presentation, maybe I'm wrong, small brain here, on the Access Services Library, but we had an outstanding, a very interesting presentation from Jennifer, probably pronouncing her name wrong too, Tashida, who is the new branch manager of the Access Services Library. She really, I think, really stimulated the group in terms of expanding everybody's knowledge of what the Access Service Library does, the client groups that they serve, and the real, and she had some real nice stories behind it, the real benefit of having this branch in our system. And I don't believe we've had somebody talk about as a presentation to this board on the Access Services Library, but I have information on two of the primary services that they do, but I think it'd be better if we could get her on the agenda and have her speak to their programs directly, if that's possible.
It's certainly been a while. I remember seeing a presentation, but whether it was on this board or previous boards, I don't know. But Jessica, why don't we
I
see?
think we had one. I think I've seen one.
Yeah, it's been maybe 2.5 years or so.
It's been a little
Yeah, I
while, so-
remember one.
But she's new, and she actually brought some, hands-on kinds of things. And I think she addressed it from a different perspective, from what I remember.
All right, Jessica, why don't we include that on a potential list of presentations? I know you probably have several for the coming year, but that's a good one. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Yes, Phil.
That's it on my report.
Phil? Phil?
If you would have wine instead of tea, I would be happy. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I do believe they're
Whatever
sticking
it
with
needs to
two.
bring the donors, right?
Any questions for or comments for the foundation? I don't see any, so let's have our director's reports, please. Jessica?
Well, I will piggyback off of that. I'm going to try and do my part this year to support our foundation, and I'll be hosting a development event at my house on May the 4th, which for those of you who are involved in any sort of fandom is also known as May the 4th Be With You Day. So unclear at this point on if we will be having a fandom-based event, but it will be interesting. And we're going to have a presentation from some staff on some of the programs that we do, as well as just general noshing. I will not be cooking. It will be other people who deliver food onto my house. So invitations will be coming out closer to the actual date. We'll have a rain date as well that'll be inside. Just a couple of things additionally, you may see on your screen of Tiny Boxes that Renee Edwards has joined us tonight. I introduced her in absentia at our last meeting, but Renee is our new Administrative Services Division Director. I can see that she's turned her camera on now. Renee, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
I'm-
Renee.
Hi,
Hey,
Renee.
Renee.
I see a lot of people that I recognize, so hello.
Hi.
Yes. I was just going to say, I think many of you probably already know Renee from her prior role as our Programming and Educational Services Director. We're thrilled that she took on this new position, while still saddened that Ted Kavich left us for retirement in the warm and sunny climes of the southern continental US. So, Renee, thank you for joining us tonight and listening in on getting a feel for what a library board meeting is like. Additionally, I had virtually via email introduced you to a new member of our library administration team. Laura Damien is now with our library admin group, and she is working with Bobby in supporting both our general admin offices and you all as the board. So I think you will see her face at a future board meeting, but for now, just know that she is in the background hanging out with Bobby, learning the ropes. And we're very pleased to have her as well.
Say the name again, please, Jessica.
Her name is Laura Damien.
Damien, okay.
I will be brief about the budget because it's been touched on previously, and I did send you all an email update about it. But just in case you haven't had a chance to read that or kind of head in the sand on it, the Board of Supervisors received a revenue projection update along with their colleagues on the school board about 2 weeks ago now, and the projections maintained what they expected from the prior projections in May. The county, along with the school, is anticipating about a $285 million deficit, which seems like a very big number. But also keep in mind that the county's general fund budget is about $4.5 billion, and the county's total budget of both general and non-general assigned dollars is $8.5 billion. So 285 is no small chunk of change. That is 10 times our budget, but it is also maybe not as much as it could be in the scope of the entire county budget. The projections that were provided included an update on the 7% reduction exercises that agencies went through. There is no information yet about what, if anything, FCPL might be required or requested to take, but we will have that information as we get closer to the February 20th release of the advertised budgets. And at that revenue projection meeting, it was incredibly clear that there was not a lot of appetite from our elected officials in taking items which had medium or high priority or mission critical impact, of which almost everything we submitted was, because the library doesn't really have a lot of fat in our budget and a lot of wiggle room in what we're able to provide outside our very strident mission critical objectives, like being open and having books. So I remain maybe a little less nonplussed about this, because I do not think that there will be quite as much coming from our agency as maybe was initially indicated. But of course, as I learn things that are ready to go out there and share, you all will be the first to know. I really don't think we'll have much in the next month or so, probably the next 6 weeks or so. It'll be as we head into February that we'll have more information. The only other thing I wanted to talk about very briefly were the 3 items that were part of my report. I went into depth about Parker's district. So Hunter Mill is having its moment in the renovation sun. Things are proceeding with both the Patrick Henry Library in Vienna and the Reston Library next to Reston Town Center. So the town council in Vienna approved unanimously, staying in their agreement with the county, which is delightful. And that was the final off-ramp moment for them. So they are locked down at this point. It is happening. That means development of design documents is done, and the county, has proceeded into construction document design. I would anticipate that we're going to have a pretty close to done idea of what this is going to look like and all the documents behind it at the end of summer, and that we will be going out to bid for contractors in the early fall. If you are a patron or a user of the Patrick Henry Library, we've been telling staff that they should anticipate being there through the end of summer reading. And after that, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey, because we'll have to see how things like our lease for a temporary space and the actual timeline towards construction go. But it's going to be in 2024. It's right around the corner. It's very exciting. And for Reston, the long journey continues, but has made some lovely steps forward. We have a confirmation from Supervisor Alcorn's Reston Town Center Task Force on the placement of public facilities within that region. And they've identified that they would like to shift a new Reston Regional Library to Block 3, which is it's kind of where it's kind of where the temporary firehouse is right now, if you're familiar with that area. So it's north of where the current library is. It's south of the old Human Services building. It's a nice lot, and they are very, very early days, but we're going to start in 2024 doing some pre-design planning. 2024 will continue to be kind of a little inside baseball stuff. The county and Inova need to continue their land swap so that the county has contiguous lots of land in order to develop their parcels. And there's not maybe as much design we can do until we actually know that we're going to own that lot of land, but we are going to start and try and proceed forward as rapid a clip as possible, knowing that the current Ruston Library is at the very end of its usable life cycle, and that any critical system failure at this point will not go well. It would be done. Suzanne.
I just thought it's kind of sad we're not going to be on Library Street.
Suzanne,
That's going to confuse people.
I knew someone was going to say it. I just knew it.
Well, maybe they could change the street names.
Yes,
We're going to be on street.
It would be easier to change the street name with VDOT than it would be to try and find a different lot of land to put that new library on. I will go out with a can of spray paint and I will just change all the signs. Someone somewhere will be mad at me, but I would do it. I'm so grateful that we are seeing some progress. Many of you have visited the Ruston Regional Library. We had the outreach committee meeting there a couple weeks ago. It is a beautiful facility, but it should have been renovated a decade ago. And it is showing its age, and it needs that pretty desperately.
And Jessica, this is going to be a separate building. It's not going to have stuff on top of it. So that's a real plus, I think.
I would have been happy in either instance. The original plans as part of the 2012 bond were that the Ruston Library would be part of an anchor for a development where it might have commercial to either side and residential above, both full price and affordable. And that did not end up being effectuated. The new plan is that the library would be on Block 3 by itself. It would be a standalone library building, but it would still be close to both the supervisor's office, the police station, the human services building, all of those other kind of key community pieces. But no, this one would be a standalone facility.
And parking would be closer probably to the entrance to the building.
We are not anywhere close to that type of planning yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we are very, very, very early days. Like the final recommendations that come out actually show a 2-story library, although all committee discussions and staff recommendations were for a 1-story library. Okay. So it's very loosey-goosey, but it's a good starting place, and I'm glad we have it.
Good. And is that an elementary school site?
The parcel directly above Block 3, parcel 1, is anticipated through the public facility recommendation process to be a potential future home for an elementary school, but it would not be needed for 25 to 30 years.
Okay.
So that one is TBD, long in the future. And they're looking at interim uses for that space as well. That's where the current human services building is.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. The only other item I had noted on here was about the Winter Reading Adventure. If you haven't signed up yet, you have plenty of time still to do it. It runs December 1st through January 31st. And for more information, check out the outreach talking points, which were included in your board packet. They have direct links to both Beanstack and the overview of the program. It's fun for everyone. Reading is good. It's good for your mind and good for your soul. Yeah, I think I will leave it at that. Oh, Brian, you were muted.
You're right. I was pushing the wrong button. Any comments or questions on Jessica on the director's report? No? Thank you, Jessica. Okay, our next thing is a consideration item. A consideration item, of course, is something that we provide to you so you can read through it, think about it over the next month, and next meeting, which will be a live meeting in January, we'll actually discuss this and take a vote on it. You may recall that some people have appeared before us wanting to get the Patrick Henry Library renamed. We talked about our guidance for that, that it should be named for the area it's in, and yet it can have a person's name on it. And so the staff, having looked at all this, have decided that not now, but after the new library is built, it should be called the Vienna Carter Library. The Carters were the ones who came to talk about naming it after their ancestor, I guess, predecessor. So take a look at what's here, think about it, think about what it means to name a library like this. I like the idea that it would still have the place name in it. It does meet our latest guideline that we approved the other month. So that's it. It's a consideration item. We'll talk about it next month.
Can
Now
I-
we get,
Could I make a comment, Brian?
yeah, sure.
If we're gonna name it, the people came and to me, just the last name, the Carter name,
Mhm.
they were there wanting to recognize somebody that, really should be recognized.
Yeah.
I call it like the Carter without possibly a first name or their names, to
Mhm.
me is insignificant. In other words, maybe after Jimmy Carter or something, but the Carter, just that name doesn't do anything for me.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it next month.
Okay.
And yeah, okay. That can certainly be part of our discussions. Now we'll have our roundtable. This is where we go around, I mentioned to you yesterday, Natalie, and talk about if we have anything to say about our district. Very quickly, Braddock District, we had a book sale at Burke Center, December 1st and 2nd, and we made about $4,300. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of booksellers, of course, and they bought a lot, but we I think had a big success there. So people still want books. They want books to give their kids for Christmas, to other people, and also and Hanukkah and all the other holidays. We had as many books as we could about all the holidays, as well as gift books. So it was successful. Other than that, I have a knee replacement on January 22nd, so it's after the next meeting. But just to let you know, I'll be out of it for a little while. So next, Fran, I'm going to start at the top left here. Fran, what you got?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, Suzanne, do you have anything?
Just happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. Keith?
No, I just want to comment about me being quiet tonight. It was just a well-run meeting, so good job.
Oh, thanks, Keith. Thank you.
No comment.
Okay. Gary, do you have anything?
No, just happy holiday.
Okay, thank you. Phil, anything else?
Happy holiday to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Kripa, the birthday girl person?
Everybody have a beverage that you greatly enjoy in my honor. Also,
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you. Liz, you got anything?
Like Braddock, Centerville Library or Centerville Friends had a what they considered a small book sale, and very successful. It made just raised just over $5,000, and
Wow.
they're very
Good.
pleased because when I first was associated with them about 2 years ago now, I guess. They were running like $3,000 on a regular book sale. So they're very, very happy over
That's
that.
very good. Very good.
Mhm.
Sue, do you have anything?
Nothing, just happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Sujatha?
Happy birthday, Kripa. I missed it. It was your birthday because
You missed the song.
I did that.
Did you?
Consider
I-
yourself lucky.
She could have carried. She could have carried.
here, I had rehearsal on my birthday because we were in a show that I may or may not have mentioned in the meeting. But in any case, like everyone was harmonizing and whatnot, as they say.
Very impressive. I did want to say that I stopped by Herndon Fortnightly the other day, like I mentioned earlier, and the Makers Lab was open, and there were kids in there doing those little the coding robot cars that you put a pen in and they draw, and it was really, really great. It was they were so happy. There were like 3 or 4 kids playing on this whiteboard, and that was really nice. And people were there. It was kind of late, and people were in there enjoying the late hours. It was great. Doodlebots. Yes, that's what they're called, Doodlebots. And everybody was very, very happy and learning. And the library is kind of full. It was great. It was great. It was a cold night, and everybody was in there in the library having a good time.
Thank you.
And
Parker, you have
happy
any?
holidays to everyone.
Okay. Parker, do you have anything?
Yeah, just Reston continues to have book sales. They had a puzzle and game sale at the end of October. I didn't report on that last month, but I think they made 13,000 plus from that. And then they had a holiday sale that finished up this past weekend. And happy holidays, everybody, and happy birthday to Kripa.
Thank you. Okay, again, happy holidays. Natalie is not officially on the board, but do you have anything at all to say about the schools or not? I don't want to really put you on the spot, but
Oh,
that's
no,
what the
I
round
appreciate-
table's about. Go ahead.
Next time I definitely will.
Yeah.
I myself have been going to visit libraries, and it's just incredible what's happening. I've tried to start with the non-traditional ones. I visited the juvenile detention center and met with the woman who runs the library there, the Burke School, which is a one of our special schools with kiddos with IEP. So I've tried to start with the non-traditional ones, but I will have more to say next time. But I'm just really happy to be here, and happy birthday, Kripa, and happy holidays to everyone as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved.
Phil moves. Do I have a second?
I second.
Kripa
Got cake
seconds.
to
All right,
enjoy,
she's
man.
got a party to go to.
This one wants to
Any
celebrate.
discussion? I'm sure none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one
Bye-bye.
opposed and no one.
Happy
Okay, we're
holidays,
adjourned.
Kripa. Happy
Simpsons
birthday.
ready.